Hello and welcome to another episode of Trees on the Streets. My name is Gavin, and today's a little bit of a gloomy day, but we're about to drive through this beautiful canyon up here. One of my favorite tighter canyons to drive through. But I figure when I drive like this, and what better time for me to talk about something I feel really strongly about, which is the first 5 modifications that you should do to any car. This pretty much works for everything. There are a few exceptions, and there is a specific important reason why I'm picking the order that I'm picking. And we'll talk about that at the end once we go through everything. A lot of people when they buy cars just want to spend all their money modifying looks. And some people when they buy their car want to spend all their money on the performance. The list that I've come up with, I feel like is a good balance between performance and looks, but probably leans a little bit more towards performance and just making your car more fun to drive. So let's get into it. Oh, that's always a good time. So for number 1, the first modification that I think you should do to any car, whether it's naturally aspirated or turbocharged, is an intake. Now the main reason I recommend an intake isn't for performance, but it's more for the fun factor. Getting an intake helps to open up your engine. In a naturally aspirated car, you're gonna get a lot more induction noise, and that just makes the car more fun. In a turbocharged car, especially in a turbocharged car, an intake is great because it helps you to hear the turbo sucking in all that air, and it makes that sound of your stock bypass valve a lot louder. And I don't know anyone with a turbocharged car that doesn't like that blow-off noise. And along with the fun factor, intakes can also help your car have a little sharper throttle response. Intakes can also give you a little bit of performance, whether it's 5 horsepower, 15 horsepower, it kind of just depends on how restrictive your stock system is. Even if you get 0 horsepower, I still recommend an intake as the number 1 modification to do to your car, just for the fun factor alone. Second modification I think you should do to your car is going to be exhaust. Whether that's headers, whether that's a cabback exhaust, whether that's a downpipe. Exhaust is another one of those things that's just going to help the fun factor of your car go way up. With intakes and exhausts, you're going to notice that by doing these modifications, your fuel economy is going to get a lot worse. And that's because you're going to be dipping into the throttle a lot more. And if that isn't evidence that it's going to make your car more fun to drive, then I don't know what is. We got to turn around. I'm going to make it a fun one. These first 2 that I've listed have been more towards the fun factor of driving and not as much towards your looks, unless you get some nice tips on your exhaust, which I definitely like. The third one that I'm going to talk about is still a performance mod, but it does lean a lot towards the looks too, and that is coilovers, fully adjustable ones, ride height and dampening, and even some camber plates. Behind a Forester is like riffing with me through this canyon. With the different cars that I've owned and all the modifications that I've done, I've come to love coilovers as one of my favorite things I've ever done. If you like to carve canyons and drive fast through the corners like I do, it's going to be one of the best things that you can do for handling. With coilovers, you can lower your car and get rid of some of that ugly wheel gap, and it's going to help your car handle so much better. They just help your car stay a lot more flat. They'll give you sharper steering and better feel through the steering wheel so that you know exactly what the car is doing. In my opinion, a good pair of coilovers is typically around $1,000. If that's a little high for your budget, you can always get lowering springs, but just know that you're not going to get near the type of performance that you're going to get out of lowering springs that you'll get out of coilovers. With coilovers, you're going to find yourself slowing down less, taking corners faster, being more confident, and having a lot more fun. And in my opinion, helping the car handle better is also something that increases the safety of your car because you have a lot more control. And that's important when you do aggressive driving. So with an intake, exhaust, and coilovers, you're really helping to open up the potential that your car comes with and just make it that much more fun to drive all around. Now for the fourth thing that I think you should do to your car is kind of a bundle, but that's wheels and tires. As far as looks go, getting new wheels is one of the biggest things that I think you can do to change the overall look of your car. Whether you stick with the same color as stock or black or something like that, just the look of the aftermarket wheels is really going to transform your car. You can get lighter aftermarket wheels that are going to help your car accelerate faster, stop quicker, and turn better. You can get wider wheels that let you fit a wider tire for a lot more grip. Lowering your car and getting rid of that wheel gap and having wheels and tires just makes the sucker look mean. As long as you don't do some ridiculous camber and stance it out and drop it so low that you can't even drive the car the way that it was meant to be driven. I'm definitely a more form follows function type of a guy. Now with wheels, some people say that you should never buy the knockoffs, that you gotta spend the most money and get the big name brands. Now I disagree. If you can afford the bigger name brands, go ahead and get them. Obviously they're gonna be better wheels. But if you can't, I've owned knockoff brands, my friends have owned knockoff brands. As long as you're not buying them specifically for a track car, they're not a bad way to go. And they're not as bad as everyone says. The same goes with tires. You don't have to spend $200, $300 to get some really grippy summer tires. Now remember, there is a specific reason why I'm choosing this order, and we're about to go into that in a minute. Once I go over the 5th modification, which I think you should do to your car, and which I also think is the most important performance modification you could do to your car, and that is a tune. Cars from the factory come with pretty conservative tunes on them that leave a lot of room on the table. They have to be able to cover a wide variety of environments, a wide variety of altitudes, a wide variety of driving styles and whatnot, so they can't be that aggressive and specific. And believe it or not, a lot of stock tunes honestly aren't the safest tunes you can have. With aftermarket tunes, not only can you get better horsepower, better throttle response, but you can also get better fuel economy. Now, with things like an intake, an exhaust, and coilovers, and even wheels and tires, it's okay to kind of go on the mid to lower spectrum of things as far as price goes. But for a tune, never ever cheap out. Never cheap out. You can have the nicest, most expensive parts in the world, but if your tune is crap, it's not going to have a lot of power, it's not going to run good, and it's not going to be safe. There can be two cars with the same exact modifications, but if one has a better tune than the other, it's going to be faster. With my Subaru, I had a stock turbo. It was basically fully bolted, but I had a really good tune. And I used to beat other guys with the same cars with bigger turbochargers than me. But because my tune was better, I beat them. And a tune's a lot cheaper than putting on a turbo. I've also known people who have spent years building their cars, building the motors, and getting them all ready to go with the nicest parts, and then blowing the sucker up in the first couple months of it being done because their tune was crap. So before you get a tune, do some research. Don't go with the guy that's just the cheapest around because you can afford him. Save up your money and get a dang good tune. We gotta turn around one more time. So now we've gone to the first 5 modifications that I think you should do to your car. The intake, exhaust, coilovers, wheels and tires, and a tune. Now these 5 things in this well-rounded package, in my opinion, are the best things that you can do to maximize the looks and performance and fun factor of any car. Now, as I've mentioned, there are specific important reasons why I chose to list those off in the order that I did, and now we're gonna go through them. With intake and exhaust, the reason why you want to do the intake first is because exhaust is usually louder than intake and will drown out the sound of an intake. With modifying cars, I think it's the most fun to be able to experience fully what each one does. So when you get an intake, that induction noise, you're going to be able to hear that, you're going to be able to enjoy that and really see what an intake does. But if you get an exhaust first, it may drown that out, and you're not really going to get to experience the same type of things you would if you would have done the intake first. Look at that, holy smoke. Now for number 3 and 4, being the coilovers and then the wheels and tires, if you do wheels and tires first, your car is going to be a lot higher off the ground. If you just go one size up from say an 18 to a 19, and you still compensate by getting a smaller sidewall, your car is still going to be a little higher. And I'm not a fan of the monster truck look. Also, when you get wider wheels and tires and fit on a bigger tire, that higher level of grip is going to be better controlled if you already have coilovers. So by getting fully adjustable coilovers where you can adjust the ride height and the dampening, it's going to help to kind of prepare you for the higher levels of grip and for the different heights that you're going to get with better wheels and tires. Now onto the 5th thing, which was the tune. And why I recommend you do that last is because when you do things like bolt-ons, intakes, exhaust, whether it be downpipes, whatever, those things help to free up the airways of your car and help it breathe better so that you can maximize the tune more. You're going to get more power out of your car by doing the bolt-ons first and then tuning it than by getting a tune first. If you do get a tune and then you get a bolt-ons, in order to maximize the setup that you have, you're going to have to get another one. So why pay for a tune and then put the bolt-ons on and then have to pay for another one? That's why I recommend that you do the tune last. Now this list may not be perfect for everyone. If you've got something like, say, a Corvette that already handles good and is low enough, you may not need coilovers and you may want to spend your money on something else. But generally, I think this works for most cars. If there's anything that I've missed that you think is really important, let me know down in the comments. Or if you've had similar experiences and you think that this list is spot on, let me know too. If this is your first time heading over to the channel, as always, welcome, and you can click the logo up here to subscribe. And if you liked the video, don't forget to let me know with a thumbs up. If you want to see some hard driving in this car, some other BMWs, and a Mercedes, you can click the video up here. If V8s are more your thing and you like their sound, you can click down here to hear a mean one. Thanks for joining me on this little drive and watching, guys, and I will see you next time.